Hello, I'm Lyn Frano, and I'm chairperson of the Braintree Community Partnership on Substance Use. I'm here today to read a story to children between the ages of 4 and 9 years old. The story is called The Red Ribbon, A Story of Hope, and it's by John Lasney. I'll be reading the story about a troubled kingdom and a king who's very sad because people in the village are sad. And it's a story about how people come together to lift the sadness that's being felt by all the people in the kingdom. This beautifully illustrated storybook has won numerous awards and has been nationally recognized by a number of organizations for helping to keep kids off of drugs. Although the book never mentions anything about drugs, it is a proactive, practical, and entertaining way to instill in children the values which will safeguard them against potential drug use. So I am going to start to read the story, and after the story is over, we're going to have a little conversation about the book, and we're also going to do a craft activity. So if you're tuned into this, make sure you have like some crayons, some pens, markers, scissors, and glue available, because we'll be working on a craft activity. You can get this craft activity by visiting the Braintree Town Hall. In the lobby, there'll be a box with some materials for you to participate in this craft activity. So please come to Town Hall anytime between October 19th and 31st, and you too can create this craft activity. We'll see you right after we read the story to participate in the craft. Okay. So the name of the story is The Red Ribbon, A Story of Hope. It was created by John Lasney, and it is read by me, Lyn Frano. Not long ago in a nearby land, a good king looked out over his kingdom. From high in the castle tower, he could see everything. Tall trees in the forest, beautiful gardens and farmlands, the crystal blue river, and all of the people who lived and worked in the village below. One would think, with all these beautiful things in sight, the king would be very happy, but he wasn't. Instead, the king was quite sad. All he could see when he looked out his window was a terrible sadness in his kingdom. Because the people in the village were afraid, the king worried and worried, and the smile he once had turned into a big frown. The king knew if he didn't do something soon to stop the sadness, he and his kingdom might never be happy again. So the king sent royal messengers to find the wisest, most powerful people in all the land and invite them to the castle to help save the kingdom. He invited dukes and duchesses, prince and princesses, lords and scholars. When they arrived, he gathered them all in a big room to tell them about the terrible sadness he could see from his window. "My friends," he said, "the kingdom has great forests with many trees for wood. Yet I see people who have no houses. The crystal river is full of fish, and there are farms as far as the eye can see. Yet I see many people who are hungry because they have no food. There are people from many nations with much to share, yet I see selfishness and fear. And the most saddest thing of all," the king said as his frown grew even bigger, "though I listen as hard as I can, I hear no children laughing. I can see no children playing. They stay in their homes, afraid to come outside. My friends, I need your help. You are my last hope. If we don't stop the sadness, it will soon destroy the kingdom." The sounds of whispers filled the room as the guests tried hard to think of ways to help the king. "Your Majesty," someone cried, "perhaps you should send a brave knight to conquer this terrible sadness." "Yes, yes," agreed everyone. "Surely a brave knight could save the kingdom." The king, sitting on his throne, just shook his head. "I have already tried that. I sent the mightiest knight in all the land to conquer the sadness, but it was too strong. My brave knight was defeated." "I've got it!" exclaimed another guest. "Perhaps the kingdom is under an evil spell and a great wizard is needed to stop the sadness." Again, Everyone agreed. Yes, yes, surely a wizard could save the kingdom. Again, the king shook his head. I'm so sorry, my friends, but you see, I've tried that too. The sadness is not an evil spell. The wizard could not help me. The king could see that even his wise and powerful friends had no ideas, and the frown on his face was now bigger than ever. Suddenly, from the back of the room, they heard a voice. Your Majesty, I know how to conquer the sadness. Everyone grew very quiet, and all eyes looked to the back of the room as a man stepped forward from the shadows. They all stared as he made his way to the front. He seemed a plain, ordinary man dressed in plain, ordinary clothes. Over his shoulder, though, he carried a curious leather sack. It was brown, and it was exceedingly large. When the man reached the throne, he politely knelt before the king, who asked, Do I know you, sir? Are you a prince, or a duke, or a brave knight? Before the man could answer, a guest shouted, He's a magician, look! He's carrying a bag of tricks. The king inquired, Is that true? Are you a magician? Do you have the magic that can heal my kingdom? The man smiled at the king. Your Majesty, I am not a duke, or a knight, or a prince, and I'm certainly no magician. I am just a simple weaver. I make cloth in the village below. A weaver? Marveled the king. Everyone started whispering again. The king squinted as he studied the stranger. How can you help me? The king asked. The man stood and explained, Though I am not a king or a prince or a magician, I know of a great power that can stop the sadness. Gather everyone in the kingdom and meet me at the castle gates as the sun rises. Do exactly as I say, and the kingdom will be saved. A guest cried, This man is just a weaver from the village. What power could he have that we do not know about? After all, we are the wisest, most powerful people in the land. There, another guest quickly pointed to the weaver's sack. The magic power must be in that big brown sack. The room quieted once again. The king leaned forward, peered at the sack, and asked the weaver, Is the power to defeat the sadness in the leather sack you carry? The weaver thought for a moment and then slowly leaned toward the king until their noses gently touched. As I said before, Your Majesty, gather everyone in the kingdom. Meet me at sunrise, and you shall see. The king sat back in his throne and scratched his head. This I have not tried, he thought. This weaver's magic may be my only hope. Then he rose to his feet and commanded, Send the royal messengers. We will meet at sunrise and do as the weaver says. Wasting no time, the messengers rode through the land, telling everyone about the weaver and his plans to save the kingdom. The next morning, the king woke early and hurried down from the tower. When he arrived at the gates, he could see that a large crowd had gathered, and everyone was excited about the weaver and his magic. Moments later, the weaver appeared, carrying his big brown sack. The crowd stepped aside as he made his way to the gates where the king waited. The king, feeling the need to say something official, cleared his throat and spoke, Loyal subjects, I give you the weaver. Before he could say more, everyone started cheering. The king raised one hand to silence the crowd, and then with the other, he pointed to the big brown sack and asked, Does this sack contain the magic that will stop the sadness and save my kingdom? Before the weaver could answer, the crowd cheered yet again. With that, the king stepped back and commanded, Let it begin. By now, the children had wiggled their way to the front of the crowd and formed a circle around the weaver and his leather sack. With eyes wide, not making a sound, they watched the weaver kneel down and open his sack. Then he reached inside and gently pulled out a bright red ribbon. It was the most beautiful ribbon anyone had ever seen, and it looked as if it could stretch for miles and miles and miles. The weaver then stood and held the ribbon high above his head. In order for the magic to work, he said, you must do exactly as I say. This ribbon must be taken through the village, down the streets, through the alleys and across the fields. You must take it throughout the kingdom, from the giant mountains to the great blue sea. But remember this, the ribbon must never touch the ground. Now listen very closely, for this is the most important part. Everyone in the kingdom must share in this task. If anyone is left out, the magic will be broken and the sadness will return. Then the weaver took the end of the red ribbon and carefully placed it in the hands of a small boy standing at the front of the crowd. He told the boy to take the ribbon and lead the way throughout the kingdom. After the boy had taken a few steps into the crowd, the weaver shouted, "Stop!" The crowd gasped as the boy froze. Looking back over his shoulder, the boy could see that if he took just one more step, the long ribbon would touch the ground. The crowd was silent. The weaver said nothing, and the king was speechless. Then a tiny girl stepped out from the crowd, and reaching out her little hands, lifted the sagging red ribbon high above her head. Without a word, she and the young boy turned and carried the ribbon forward. Now everyone understood. One by one, the people of the kingdom stepped forward to take their share of the ribbon. The banker followed the carpenter, who followed the school teacher, who followed the blacksmith. On and on they came to carry the bright red ribbon throughout the kingdom. Before long, hundreds of people were holding the ribbon. It stretched from one corner of the kingdom to the other. They held it high above their heads, just like the little girl, so that it would never touch the ground. The king looked at the people and the ribbon stretching far into the distance. He looked at the leather sack, then at the weaver. So he said, "When does the magic begin?" "It has already begun," the weaver replied. And with that, he kindly took the king by the arm and led him along the great ribbon. Before long, they came to a young girl with a ribbon wrapped around her shoulders. She stood shivering in a thin and tattered dress. Next to her was a man in nice new clothes who could not help but ask, "Where is your coat, young lady? It is much too cold to be without a coat." "I have no coat, sir," the girl said. "No coat!" he exclaimed, waving his arms in the air. "Everyone should have a coat, and that includes you. You see, I am a tailor. I make clothes, and I especially love making coats. Why, I have dozens of coats in my shop. I have green ones and orange ones, large ones and small ones, and I'm quite sure I have one just right for you. It would make me very happy to give you a coat to keep you warm." The little girl smiled. The king was amazed. It was the first smile he had seen in the kingdom in a long, long time. Even his frown was growing smaller. The magic is working, he thought. Then he turned to the weaver and said, "Please, show me more." Next, they came to a very thin old man. Beside him, holding the ribbon, was a round lady wearing a white apron and a floppy hat. "What is that growling?" the lady asked. "Excuse me, ma'am," said the old lady. "That's my stomach. I hope it didn't frighten you." "I've never heard such a growl from a tummy," the lady said. "Have you had nothing to eat today?" "No," said the old man. "I've had no food for 2 days." "Heavens!" she cried. "No food for 2 whole days? Why, I can go no more than 2 minutes without a little something to silence my tummy." "Allow me to introduce myself. I am the village baker. If you come to my shop today, I'll fill your belly with warm bread and the finest cakes and pies in the kingdom." "Thank you, kind lady, but I have no money," the old man said. The baker thought for a moment. "My friend, I have an idea," she said. "I need someone to deliver my cakes and pies to the townspeople. If you will help me, I will pay you a fair wage. That way you can buy food and will never hear your tummy complain again." "I'll do it," the old man said. Again, the king was amazed by what he heard. His frown almost vanished, and he asked to see more. Soon they came to the crystal river where 2 men from different nations, standing tall and proud, held their share of the ribbon. Neither man said a word. In fact, they were trying very hard not to notice each other at all. The men began to wonder how long they would have to stand there holding the ribbon. "We might be side by side forever," each man thought. yet I cannot let go of the ribbon. I will not be the one to break the magic." As time passed, the men realized their stubbornness was silly. If they were going to be together for a long time, it would be much easier to talk rather to ignore one another. Finally, the silence was broken. "I have noticed you have a beautiful garden on your side of the river," said one man. "You are quite a farmer. I would like to be able to grow vegetables just like yours someday." "Thank you," said the farmer. "I see you have built yourself quite a barn. You must have cut the wood from the tall trees that grow on your side of the river. You are quite a woodsman. I would like to have a barn like that someday." The two men thought for a moment, and then each man looked at the other. "I have an idea," said the farmer. "I will give you some of my vegetables and teach you how to grow a garden like mine, if you will show me how to build a barn like yours." "Show you how to build a barn?" exclaimed the woodsman. "I can do better than that. Not only will I show you how, I will give you the wood with which to build it." The men didn't ignore each other anymore. That very day, they built a bridge across the river so they could share with one another. The king was delighted with what he'd seen. His frown was completely gone, and a big smile had taken its place. The weaver and the king made their way throughout the entire kingdom. By now, there was much celebration. People cheered, church bells rang, horns blew, and at long last the king could hear the laughter of children. The sadness was gone. The kingdom was saved. The king and the weaver returned to where it had all begun. Approaching the castle gates, they watched as the last person in the kingdom pulled the ribbon from the brown leather sack. Suddenly, the king began to panic. There was still more ribbon in the sack. It must not touch the ground, he thought, so he raced to catch it. But before he could reach the big brown sack, the last few feet of ribbon lifted out and fluttered in the breeze. Slowly, very slowly, the red ribbon fell softly to the ground. The king dropped to his knees. His sad old frown returned. A tear puddled in his eyes and rolled down his cheek. The last hope to stop the sadness and save the kingdom is gone. What on earth will I do now? As the king stared at the ribbon lying on the ground, he noticed something wonderful. People were cheering, bells were ringing, and horns were blowing, and the children were laughing. Though the red ribbon had touched the ground, the celebration had not stopped. "The magic is still working," the king shouted as he jumped to his feet. "My dear weaver, your red ribbon is more powerful and amazing than even you imagined. You must tell me how you made it. Was it magic? Where did the magic come from?" The weaver said nothing, simply held out his hand and pointed toward the people. The king was puzzled. "I don't understand," he said. Then he looked out into the faces of his people and listened to their voices. A big smile covered the king's face as he realized the magic is not in the weaver's red ribbon. The true magic is in the hands and hearts of those who embrace it. And throughout the land, from the castle to the valley, from the crystal river to the big blue sea, one person turned to another and another to another, with smiles on their faces and laughter in their voices. They sang and danced, knowing that the kingdom was saved, and that as long as their hearts were joined together, they could conquer all the sadness and live peacefully ever after. And that's the beginning of a very happy kingdom. And that's the end of the book. I hope you enjoyed the story. I really liked this story. At the beginning, the king is very sad because people who lived and worked in the village were very sad. Neighbors did not talk to each other, kids did not play outside, and no one felt safe. The weaver knew that if he could get the village people to come out of their homes and work together, that they could feel good about themselves and their neighbors. For example, when the tailor helped the little girl who was cold by giving her a coat, both the tailor and the little girl felt really, really good. And when the baker gave the hungry man something to eat and gave him a job, the man was able to buy his own food. The baker and the old man felt really good because they were able to help each other. When we have food to eat, warm clothes to wear, and family and neighbors who care about us, it helps us to feel safe. When people feel safe, they are more likely to share, to be good listeners, and listen to what other people have to say. They help each other in need, and they do well in school. They are also less likely to use drugs. So I am going to show you a little bit about, we're going to talk about the craft activity. I have in this little basket here everything you will need, and we'll go through that in a minute. But first I want to tell you how you can get your craft activity. You're going to ask an adult in the house that you live in to go to Town Hall, to Braintree Town Hall in the foyer, and on the right-hand side there'll be a table that'll say Red Ribbon Activities. And all they have to do is grab a bag. And there's a lot of good, really good stuff for the adults in the home. And then there are some really good things for kids in the home. And I'm going to show you what the really good things are for kids. It's our craft activity. So first of all, this is the craft activity. The adult will be able to pick from two types of crafts. One that has a person with lighter skin and one that has a person with darker skin. Also inside the bag with the craft activity is a couple of Red Ribbon Week pledges. And I'm going to read a little bit about what the pledge says for young people. This is my Red Ribbon pledge. It's October 23rd to the 31st during Red Ribbon Week. I pledge to stay in school and learn the things I need to know. Make the world a better place for kids like me to grow. Keep my dreams alive and be all that I can be. Help others and keep myself drug-free. And you will sign your name there and put the date. And then there's also a pledge for the adult in your home. And also in the bag, you're going to find a song. And we're going to sing the song after we finish the craft activity. And the song is called If You Have a Red Ribbon Song. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So right now, I'm going to start the craft activity. So I am going to just take these down, put them down here. And as you can see, you're going to need, these are the things you're going to need to do the craft activity. You're going to need one of these, a pair of scissors, and you're going to make sure that if you need help, that you have an adult in the home help you to cut out the shapes. You're going to need a glue stick, some crayons, and if you want, a marker. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken one of these templates and I've cut everything out. So all I have to do right now is take my glue stick and start to glue things on. So this is what's called a paper doll. This is me, and I am going to make this paper doll into me. And I'm going to be holding a red ribbon. So you're going to see while I do this. So for those of you who don't know, these two things right here are hair. If you're a boy, you're probably going to just use the small hair, and if you're a girl, you can use the longer hair, and I'll show you how that's done. There's a pair of pants. Girls can wear either a skirt or a pair of pants. Boys, there's a top, and there's also a ribbon. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm going to take my glue stick. I'm a girl, so I am going to take this hair, and this is going to seem a little bit funny because if you glue it on like this, it's going to cover your face. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the glue right on here and put it behind. Okay, so you can see it's. And then I'm going to take. I have a little bit of bang, so I'm going to take this hair and I'm going to put it here on top of the head. So now you have, that's me. I have a couple of little pig ponytails. So my hair is brown. So I'm going to take my brown crayon and I'm going to color in my hair. Just like this. Okay, and whatever color hair you have, if you have yellow, if you have blonde hair, you can color it with a yellow crayon. If you have black hair, you can color it with a black crayon. But because my hair is brown, I'm going to color it with a brown crayon. So there you go. Next, I'm going to take a marker. I kind of like markers. And I'm going to make my eyes. Now I have brown eyes. So I'm going to put, here are my eyes, my eyebrows, my nose, and my mouth. And I wear earrings, so I'm going to put some earrings over there, just like that. Now, let's see. My eyes are brown, so I'm going to find my brown crayon again, and I'm going to color my eyes in brown. And I'm also going to give my lips a little bit of color. And I can give my cheeks a little bit of color just by rubbing like this. There we go. Okay. Next, I'm going to take, I think I'm going to wear pants. I have pants on today, so I think I'm going to wear pants. So I'm going to take the pants, because they've been cut out already, and I am going to put my glue stick on it, on the back side, that side that has no color. And I'm going to put my pants on. There we go. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to need to put my top, my shirt. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my glue stick, and I am going to glue on the back, so the side that has no color. And then I'm going to put that on, just like that. Okay. Now, these little brown things over here, these are shoes. So I'm going to take the shoes, and again, I'm going to put the glue on the back side, so the side without color. Now, you don't have to put shoes on your person. If you like to go around barefoot, that's fine. And my second shoe, 1, 2, buckle my shoe. And then I'm going to put the shoe on the other foot. Okay. And last but not least, I'm going to take my red ribbon, and I'm going to glue my red ribbon. I'm going to hold that ribbon up, just like the people did in the store, just like all the villagers did with the help of the weaver. And I'm going to go like this on the back, not on the side with color, but on the side with no color. And I'm going to hold that ribbon in my hands, just like that. Now, what I like to do is, I like to take my marker or my crayons, and I like to write my name on the ribbon. So my name is Lyn, so it's L-Y-N, Lyn. So I am going to put my name, and if you need help from an adult in your home, ask them, and they can help you to write your name. So, there you have it. Now, okay, so now we have, Lyn is all ready to go, and hopefully she'll stay together. And I am going to take Lyn off of the paper here. She's glued on quite well. And now, Lyn, all ready to go. See? So this is the hair. And I used 2 pieces of hair. I did the hair for my bangs, and I glued the girl's hair in the back of her head. Remember that? On the back. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to sing a song, and it's called If You Have a Red Ribbon, Hold It High. And it's to the tune of If You're Happy and You Know It. So if you want to do this with me, you can join in. So are we all set? Okay. If you have a red ribbon, hold it high. If you have a red ribbon, hold it high. If you have one and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you have a red ribbon, hold it high. Second verse. If you have a red ribbon, shout hooray. Ready? If you have a red ribbon, shout hooray, hooray! If you have a red ribbon, shout hooray, hooray! If you have one and you know it, then you really ought to show it. If you have a red ribbon, shout hooray, hooray! I hope you enjoyed the story and the craft activity. Make sure that an adult comes to Town Hall and picks up one of these for you, a packet for you. Again, the bag looks like this. There are some goodies for the adult in your home, and there's also the craft activity. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did, and I hope you will enjoy the craft activity, and I hope that you will be able to sing along and hold that red ribbon high during Red Ribbon Week. Thank you very much, and have a great day.